It's not going to very well, I don't think. I was going to show a flag picture, but I can't get it up. So we'll go ahead and please rise with me and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
which it stands,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much. Our next item is approval of the agenda. Would anybody like to move any of the consent agenda items to the regular agenda? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion and a second. All those in favor, aye.
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 All those opposed, same. All right, that motion carries. Item 4, we're going to have a dedicated work session tonight. So this dedicated work session is for the mayor and city council. Work session is expected to last, up to an hour. And we're going to have an item, work session is about the Norwalk Central Athletic Complex. So is Holly on?
I am.
I will let you take it over.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I'm not sure if we're supposed to have our videos on or not, but there you go. So as you all know, we have been working on this sports center project for many years, and we initially started out with a different developer. I think everybody kind of understands where that direction ended up. So I would like to maybe start out by saying that this new project, although there are a lot of similarities to the first project that we were working on that everybody was somewhat familiar with, this one is a whole new project. So I just want to make sure that everybody's expectations are kind of ready to just start from scratch. So we still have similar pieces to it in terms of the outdoor fields and an indoor facility and sort of a public-private type of a partnership with this. But other than that, it's very different. So hopefully everybody is just kind of aware and ready to just kind of look at this as a fresh, brand new type of a project. So Luke, I don't know if you'd like to maybe pull up the maps. 2 maps in one document. And we also have Adam Mekis on here, who has been our engineer design consultant, working on the overall Hughes Century Crossing / Norwalk Central project, which of course includes the biggest piece of this being the sports center project. So he has put together all of these maps for us if anybody has any really specific questions to drill down on. But I thought we would maybe just kind of start with this overhead view. So it's pulled back a little bit, and we have another map just below it that drills down a little bit closer to just the specific sports center piece. But just so you guys can kind of have your bearings a little bit, where it's located within the greater sub area 1, Norwalk Central. We have a lot of different names to it, but I think we're kind of narrowing down the Norwalk Central to just kind of focus on the future town center area, where we will have a lot of the civic components and the sports center area. So anyway, we've drilled back down here a little bit to what we're looking at for the sports campus project as a whole. So at the bottom 2 kind of light green boxes, those are called pods. So they are really large field space. The developers plan to use really high-end turf. Is something that's just a little bit different than what some of the other projects are doing around the metro. So that should draw a little bit different crowd. But that within these big pods, they're able to have multiple fields that can be used for multiple different types of sports. So very functional in different ways. And then the purple kind of L-shaped shape, that's the building. So there are kind of 2 components to that building where you see the little courts drawn in there. That is what we're kind of considering or working towards being the more public facility. So this is a facility that the city, that you guys can kind of determine, do we want to own this chunk of this building or this portion of this building and run it ourselves? Do we want the developers to own this whole thing and we lease that space from them? But the whole point of that section of building where you see those courts, the whole point of that piece of facility is really because we don't have a whole lot of recreation, fitness, sports types of amenities for the community. And Parks and Rec, and Robin, I know will speak as well, but Parks and Rec, there are really low on space. They need to be able to provide many different programming. I'll let her talk about that, but that's really where the idea of this indoor courts facility came from. The sports developers don't have a huge interest in having that space just for themselves because there's just not a lot of profit in that type of a facility for what they do. So the other kind of slimmer piece that says sports, oops, I guess we have the name on there still. Thought we had that out of there. But so the other L-shaped piece there, that would be the private building. So they are two separate buildings, but they are connected. And that section would be for the developer to just fill with private users. So they would lease out spaces to other types of recreation and fitness users like gymnastics, dance, other fitness, indoor types of sports as well. And then within that kind of corner of that L shape, we would try to have some shared space to make the cost a little bit more affordable. So that would maybe be the main entrance. And then there would be some shared, restrooms, locker rooms, a waiting area, that sort of thing, instead of having two separate ones, since both of these facilities will have access to each other and people will kind of be coming and going for different reasons. So this is just kind of the very base model of what we've been looking at. So it's fairly simple, but this is what the developers feel like would be successful and would be relatively affordable considering all of the other types of projects that are going on around the metro. And they've done a lot of work and a lot of planning. They have a lot of experience in this business, and they just want to make sure that they can start with what makes sense and then grow as the community grows into this and the industry changes. We have room for expansion. So with that, Luke, I don't know if maybe Robin or Jackie wants to kind of jump in and talk about some of the planning pieces that we've been working on with this, or the mayor, before I go into any other detail.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So go ahead, Robin.
Oh, that's okay. You go ahead. My piece will be longer than yours.
Well, I was just going to say, we've been working on trying to get this area developed for a long time. Like Holly said, our first plan is kaput, over and done with, and we are starting anew. We worked a lot with Adam and with the developers to try and come up with a concept that we think reflects the feedback that we've gotten, as well as what we really think the community wants in this type of facility. So frankly, today, from my perspective, is about selling counsel on the concept. It's an expensive concept. It's an expensive venture for the city, and there's no reason to beat around the bush about that, because that's definitely going to be one of the issues. And how do we want to do it? And do we want to do it? But Luke, if you would scroll back up to page 1. When you look at the whole concept, the right kind of more than a quarter, maybe a third of the page is all residential development. Some of that residential is already started. A lot of the infrastructure is what would have to probably go next. But, it's a what comes first, the chicken or the egg thing. Do we do infrastructure in order to solidify the deal with the sports campus? Do we require sports campus deal to be solid? It's kind of gone back and forth a lot trying to get that all figured out. The developer's ready to go forward with some of the infrastructure. There's some details that still have to be worked out, particularly, I think, still with Public Works. But this is, it's a big community area. Indoor space, outdoor space, there's some commercial, there's some residential that butts up against it. But it's a huge concept, and it's not like anything that we have tackled before. I don't think it can be compared to any other thing that we've done in the city, any other incentive, any other package, any other agreement, any other PUD. And it's a completely different thing. And I'm hoping that we can all think outside the box a little bit.
And really quickly before Robin starts her piece, I'm sorry, Robin, I just want to make sure that council kind of understands what we're looking for after this work session, or what we're looking for during it. Kind of like what Jackie said, is we're really looking for kind of two main pieces. When we step away, do we want to tell the sports developers that we are interested in moving forward with the base model, which we'll get into here in a little bit, kind of as is, or do we want to add on these sort of additional a la carte type options? Robin will talk a little bit about some of the needs that they have or have seen with the community, and that would give us that sort of a la carte, not olive options that we could add in. Of course, it gets more expensive, but we just look at what it is the community's been asking us for. So kind of going into this, it's like Jackie said, it is going to be an expensive project. It's just whether the city decides, you guys decide if this is a priority, we really want or need this, then we would have to look at this as not a normal commercial return on investment type of project that we are just going to pay for a lot of it to have as amenities. So we kind of look at it that way. So that feedback would be, do we want to move forward with the base model, or do we want to add on some of these a la carte items to make this a bigger, more community friendly type of a project? And then also, we would like to know if we would like to pursue the path of the city potentially owning that public side or the indoor courts facility, or just let the sports developers build it, own it, and we lease it from them. So those are kind of the main things that we're looking for. But with that, I'll just go ahead and turn it over to Robin.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I apologize, my video is not on. I'm actually driving into town. So we currently, we have a wonderful park system, and all of our spring and summer, I should say summer and fall activities that we can do outside, we do use outside. Our baseball diamonds are filled every weeknight and every weekend, whether it be with our programming or rentals for Norwalk Twin Rivers, youth softball practices, and both baseball and softball tournaments on the weekends. So having additional field space to be able to stretch out and use in that area would help us a lot. The biggest piece that we are in need of is indoor space. Winter and spring, we currently utilize the schools, and we're maxed out on time and location. The school does try to prioritize. Obviously, their programming is first. We are second, but they do have a lot of need from the community, and they do try to please everyone. So as far as extending our programs for basketball and volleyball, when we are at our limits, we are unable to. We're unable to offer, we offer basketball right now in the winter, but if we wanted to offer a program in the spring indoors or in the summertime, right now, those really aren't options for us. The other thing that we currently do not do, we do not have any programming for teenagers. We just do not have the space to be able to offer programming for them. The other age group in our community which lacks programming and space is seniors. So having dedicated space for both of those groups is something that we are hoping to accomplish through indoor space in what I am calling our piece a community center instead of a recreation complex. It's more community-based. It's for programming, for all of park and recreation activities. The program, you know, the programs that we currently offer, being able to expand those, offering senior programs, having senior space, and teenage programming. I'm looking at having like a suspended walking track so people can use that at all times. Recreation offices we would like to have those in this facility. A multi-purpose space so that we can bring our exercise classes into this building, which we currently use the schools for that programming as well. I'm trying to think, I apologize. I'm trying to think of other things that, oh, I know one of the pieces, which is something, so Nevada is currently in the process of fundraising for a facility that they are building in their town. And one thing that I saw, which I thought was an excellent piece for us to be able to rent out and have a revenue stream coming in for the community center, was to have indoor turf space. Because currently in our town, we do not have indoor turf space. So if we were wanting to run a soccer program for park and recreation in the winter, we just don't have, we would run a futsal league, which is on a basketball court. And if we weren't running our programs, I know that the soccer club would be interested in having indoor space, or other teams that would want to practice in the winter for different tournaments and stuff like that they travel to. I don't know, Holly, does that cover, Mayor, did I cover most of the need and what we were wanting in the community center?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, the big message is while the school district would, you know, they've been great partners over the years, and with allowing us to use their space. As they grow, that space is becoming more and more needed by the school district for their programming. So you know, and you just gotta respect that. And so we need to, I think the city needs to seriously think about providing our own space, because as we are growing and as the school district continues to grow, our programming is going to need to transition over to our own space.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
If you may recall, Jackie, you may recall the same, and I know we've got a couple representatives, I believe, from the school on this call right now. Early on, there was some concern that this type of a facility may have some conflict with the school NPEC. But we were very quick to have meetings and go through discussions with the school, and they explained that they are very supportive of this project and the city having space. Even with their addition, they still see that the city's needs is going to far outpace what they would be able to share with us. So there isn't conflict between this and the school project, just in case anybody might be thinking that question.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay, and then Luke, if you would maybe want to pull up the document that has the budget on it. I don't know if we're ready to maybe sort of talk about that. So essentially what we're looking at here with the sports developers, and when we say developers, you know, we have two sets of developers involved in this. We have the landowners which is Diligent, and then we have the sports developers. So that's the private business entity that is looking to purchase the land from Diligent. We will eventually have to have, a couple of different development agreements. We would have to have one with Diligent for infrastructure, because they will be providing the infrastructure throughout this entire, Hughes Century Crossing, Norwalk Central Sports Camp area. So they'll be building all the infrastructure, selling the land to the sports developers, and then working with us on developing out our kind of town center, Norwalk Central area. So with that being said, this particular developer, this spreadsheet here is the sports developers budget for just the sports campus project. So when we were talking about kind of that a la carte menu and the base model versus the add-ons, and what Robin was talking about, where that add-on list or a la carte list came from, was really speaking with not only the community for what we feel like everybody needs and wants based on their responses to everything, but also Parks and Rec and what they know they need in terms of programming and space. So they provided us, they went out, got estimates, they've done a lot of work on this. And so if they were to build the entire thing exactly the way that we want it, which involves, like Robin said, the indoor walking track, multi-purpose room, kitchen, the community space, their offices, all of the different things that we would want to add on to just having the 4 courts. All in all, they'll spend about 25 million. I think there's some room to wiggle on that. We will end up shaving off a bit on the site prep. There's a pretty big chunk of dollars in there when it comes to the site work and site prep. The main reason that I say that is because right now we're kind of in negotiations or working back and forth between the land owners and the sports developers on that piece, because they may end up being able to kind of discount that price down by just providing a pad ready site for them at a set cost for the land, shovel ready, infrastructures to it. So we will have some wiggle room on that piece of it. However, it's still going to end up being around a $20 million project if we did everything that we want to have in there. If we remove, and that's really up to council, if we want just that base model, that's just the indoor 4 courts and some Parks and Rec offices and a little bit of community entry space, then that significantly lowers, the price by about 8 to 10 million, I would say, if we kind of itemize out, if we took out the walking track and the kitchen and the multi-purpose room. So really you'll be able to kind of look through that list when you have more time and look at those details and determine, do we want all of these things? Is this really worth it for the community? Or do we just really want the base model? And I just got this, you guys, so I hope nobody thinks that I've been like withholding this information or the maps or the spreadsheet, because I literally just got these things like an hour ago. So at least some updated version. So we're learning this together. But we know generally what the sports campus developers had planned to spend, and they did plan on this project costing anywhere between 13 to 18 million, with just the things that they felt we really needed that would be profitable for them. Their big thing is the pods. They have a lot of the outdoor, turf type sports, and then their section of the building that they would lease out to other recreation entities. So they knew, they'd become somewhere in this arena here, but they are willing to add on those extra pieces within the public building side of it if we want it. It's our expense because it's what we want for our community. They would help us manage the building. We have options to own that side of the building or just let them build the whole thing. We incentivize that. We do kind of a form of a prepaid lease, and then we'd have full use of that side of the building, the public side of the building, for a set number of years to buy us out of that lease.
Holly, this is Robin.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question, and you may not know, I'm not sure if you were able to talk to them after you got this, but in the indoor courts facility, and then it says private building, is that an additional 4 million if we were to have a private building? But if we join facilities with a common entrance and sharing locker rooms and stuff like that, the 4 million would not be a cost? Is that what that means?
No, I think that's just separating out what it'll cost to build their separate side of the private, kind of that L-shaped piece of the facility that they would lease out to other entities. So that's their private 40,000 square feet. We're still connected. The two buildings are still connected, but that's basically theirs.
Okay, thank you.
Robin, this is Stephanie. Has there been a big demand for indoor soccer programs run by Parks and Rec in the wintertime? I'm just looking at the biggest number that stuck out at me was $2 million for synthetic turf inside. I'm not going to go through each line item here, but that just popped out. And I don't recall. I mean, people want basketball courts. I've heard that. I heard the track, but this is the first I've heard that there is any desire or any need for indoor turf.
Yeah, so we just don't have any space, so it's not asked of us. The soccer house, yeah, the soccer house is north of town. It's an old horse barn, which is where a lot of the kids from the area and some West Des Moines kids usually have a winter league there. The other place for the winter league here in town is Sportsplex West, and that is those leagues are full. So, but no, we haven't had any requests for that. But I also don't have space to be able to even offer that. So I know the high school team practices indoors at the high school, and they do it with a futsal ball. I would bet that if we had a turf, and I can call the high school coach and find out, but if we had a turf, my guess is, they may want to use that instead. And it's not, and I'll take that back. I won't say high school practice in the winter. It's more that the kids get together, the high school kids get together and shoot around up there. So it's not an actual league or practices, high school sanctioned.
More like open gym time.
Yes.
For the soccer kids. Yeah.
So,
Go ahead, Brian.
well, I'm confused. I thought we wanted basketball courts, volleyball courts, all that. And now we're mixing in the turf. I don't see enough room for all of this. And how do you lay down the turf, then decide you're going to play basketball, lay a set down? That's major labor.
So
Laying down new boards.
go back to the page 2 there, Luke. Go down. So if you notice the potential for building expansion, Robin,
Okay.
wasn't the turf in there as far as an expansion?
I'm not sure where they placed the turf.
Okay.
The turf was not. So the idea is that the turf would be laid out in an area where there would be a basketball court underneath it if we needed an additional court. So more where the turf might be out in the winter time, and then 4 months during the summer it would be up, so we'd have an additional court space. But it wouldn't cover all the courts. The majority of the courts would still be open for full-time use.
Also,
And on that,
Brian, to note too, is that the part of the outdoor pod, the pods that are just south of the building, they have also kind of an a la carte option, which I actually think that they will end up doing this just kind of on their own, but they put it in there in case it's something we definitely want out of the gate. But they would have the opportunity or the ability for the wintertime to put up kind of a bubble or a dome over some of those fields. And a lot of colleges will do that, and that way you have use of it, year round. So and it's way cheaper than just building a solid structure for year round indoor soccer that you may not need. So that is an option as well.
So boy, I don't want to take us into the weeds, but I might. Is indoor turf different than outdoor turf?
I have no idea.
I think so, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I know outdoor turf, it has like 4 or 5 inches of sand and the rubber pellets and all that stuff in there.
Yeah, that's not, indoor turf does not.
Okay.
Correct. The indoor
It doesn't
turf would
add
be able
underneath
to
it.
be rolled up and moved.
You know,
And
Mayor,
I can,
sorry.
Go ahead, Robin.
okay, as I say, I can send a link to a video that Nevada sent me on what their, on the kind of design that they have for their indoor turf and basketball systems. I'm probably not explaining it very well. Yeah,
Okay.
but I mean, if the private group is going to put the structure up over the outdoor turf, and that is less expensive, that's going to be the most ideal situation.
Well, that's already in the budget there for $1.2 million. So it seems like we're double hitting it. But I know you're not looking for a discussion of how much things cost and the details. I know you're looking for a broader picture discussion.
And that was kind of their point too, by providing this, is so that we could decide we definitely don't want certain pieces of it, or we absolutely want certain areas, or we don't care. So that's also the direction that they're looking for.
I would say, it seems to me that the soccer program at Parks and Rec, we haven't been able to offer indoor, but it is dwarfed by the soccer club that uses Mackinac and pays for that privilege. So if we were to do an indoor turf, it would really be, to me, for the benefit of the private user. So I would just, as we go through, if we go through looking at this, I would like to know how much rent and, how much would they pay to offset that cost, like over a 15-year period or something like that.
Stephanie, this is Robin. I know if I had indoor turf in the winter, I would offer a soccer program in the winter as well.
Okay, but the soccer program for Parks and Rec, it is not as big as the soccer club, right?
Currently, the soccer club they are not able to offer programming in the winter because they don't have indoor space.
No, I mean, just on the existing program for outside. I'm just looking at the Parks and Rec program versus the soccer club program.
Unfortunately, I don't have those numbers off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
But even assuming that you're right, Stephanie, I feel like it's kind of comparing apples to oranges, because right now there's enough outdoor space for Park and Rec and soccer club and whatever to go different places. But all of our kids that want to do soccer year round, they have to go someplace else. And we have a lot of them because we don't have any place to offer it. So again, this kind of discussion about what we are and aren't going to put in here, I think is a discussion for later. I understand let's get a better idea of what we're talking about in terms of cost. But based on my conversations with people who still have teenagers who are playing soccer, there's a huge demand for indoor space in the off season, and there's just not a lot of indoor space.
Okay.
Well, I know kids are playing soccer at the soccer barn that Robin referred to. They're playing at 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night because that's the only time they can get in.
Yeah, I think also with indoor turf, baseball and softball, I'm in the middle of that right now, and there's huge demands for that also during the cold weather. There's teams all over the metro and a lot of teams here in Norwalk that are just struggling to find any place. So,
well, is the new West
my experience, what's that?
Is the new West Des Moines or the Kyle Kraus development going to have indoor space?
I think it does.
Metroplex.
Don't you think whatever we built would be used?
Yes, that's what I think.
I don't think that part of the discussion. I mean, anything we put up there is going to get pretty good public use. I'll bet you, and that won't be declining either.
And Stephanie, I do think that, yes, those other facilities are going to have indoor space, but I'm telling you, there is just not enough. And in our community, one of the gripes I always had was we send our kids to 6 different programs because we don't have anything here. And then we want them to all come back and play together for competitive high school level sports. Lots of other communities, they can put all their kids in the same program. So they're playing together for years and years and years. We're at a disadvantage in that regard. So giving people stuff that we can do here without having to farm them out to 6 different places is part of the advantage to building this.
So let me ask a question for council, and I might poll all of you. So do you think that we have shown that so far that the city is in need of this type of a facility, no matter what goes in it, whether it's what the makeup of what's inside, what it is? Would you agree that we need the facility?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I do.
Okay,
I
so
would say so.
Oh, great. I think we can take this to the next part of the discussion then. And Holly, I'll let you go there with the 3. I think there's 3 options that you were going to present.
So we just need to, in terms of feedback back to the developers, and Adam too, if we're missing anything, please feel free to pop in because you designed this stuff for us. But in terms of feedback back to the sports developers, so they know what our next step would be, they would like to know generally, and it doesn't have to be exact. Go ahead, Jackie.
Sorry, I just noticed that, and I don't know if anybody else noticed, there's a comment in the comments section that we have somebody on the line from an indoor soccer club that could add some perspective.
Yeah,
I'm not saying we go there now. I'll let y'all do it when you want. I just want to make sure we saw it.
Yeah, we got it. Thank you.
Sorry, Holly.
No, it's okay. So really, we just need the feedback we need for them would be, do we want to just kind of pursue this base model, which is that kind of basic indoor 4 courts and kind of basic parks and rec offices, and just go with that? Or do we want to try to pursue adding on some of those things that we know the community really needs and wants? And if so, what do we think those are? Is it the indoor track? Is it the community room? And it's not locking us into place with these things at this time. It'll just help them as they get deeper into their design phases, and budgeting, of course, and kind of figuring out between us and them, how do we pay for these things and what does that look like financially? So that's number 1 that we'll need to kind of hopefully walk away from today. And then the second one is, do we have any interest in the city owning that public chunk of the building? Or do we just want them to build it, run it, own it, we pay to use it?
Well, let me start out.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Ed.
No, it's all right. Go ahead.
I think if we're going to basically lease it on a long-term lease, I've made a lot of money over my life and know leasing very well. It is not advantageous for the city. I think 20 years from now, the demand for courts will be just as high as it is now when that lease runs out, and then all heck breaks loose. I think this is a long-term purchase, and then we lease to them, is how I would picture this. I would like to see a community room. I would like to see a walking track. I'm not sure we need 4 basketball courts and some massive soccer field. I think that's probably asking too much. But I would like to see it spread out as far as the walking track and a community room. I've seen how popular those are around the south side of Des Moines growing up. But I really think that we need to own this and lease it to them, not the other way around. We need to own the long-term asset.
Ed, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, Mayor, that I'd say yes, that we should look at all those things and then maybe lay them down against the discussion of funding sources and that sort of thing. And that's probably more where you get into situational decision-making on this person's day out or whatnot. Because I think all those things are things the community would like to have, right? The other piece of this that I just want to think about, and I'm just thinking out loud, I guess, Brian, that, if we lease it from another entity, the other entity pays taxes all those years. How does it work if we own it and they lease it from us? Do they pay property taxes on all that stuff all those years? Or are they exempt because we own the land?
Luke, maybe you can answer this. How does economic development handle leasing that building? Do they pay property tax on that or not?
The way that properties are taxed is if they are viewed as a profit-making entity. So if that lease appears, regardless of us being a tax-exempt body, if that lease is perceived as them profiting, then it would be taxed.
Right,
Aren't
but
they,
we
aren't they
would,
just going to forward their property tax to us and we're going to pay it anyway?
if we own it, we pay the tax if taxes have to be paid, right? I mean, how are
Well,
we making?
The whole idea of us buying this and having to do it is because it wasn't going to make enough profit for them. So Luke kind of answered the question. It sounds like we won't have a lot of taxes if it does not have a good enough profit motive. Otherwise, they would have gone on and done it by themselves. They said that there is not a demand for the basketball courts from a profit motive. That's what they've stated.
I understand, but I guess my question is, they are talking about this in two different things. If they own the whole building, then, right, the whole thing gets taxed and the the tax comes out of the profit on the other side, doesn't it? I mean, right, it's not
Why
divided
would
into
we
two
do
different
that?
things?
We will by far be the largest lessor of their goods, what they have available. If we're going to take the four courts area, for example, why on earth would we not buy it and lease them the space when it's a more minor area of the space? And like I said, a city is around forever. We build buildings that last for 100 years. We don't build buildings like a house that lasts for 20 or 30. This is a long-term operation.
Jackie and Holly, I have a question. Where you're at on this, aren't you at a point where you're wanting to find out overall investment, whether it's something that it is a city ownership or it's leased? To some extent, those are some of the details we need to work out. The bottom line is you're really looking, is there support for the investment it's going to take to get this off the ground?
So I think definitely Holly probably has more educated response than I do, but yes. But part of the question is, the next question is, how much are we willing to pay? And I think that who owns this factors into that a lot.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so, sorry, I don't want to take over leading the discussion, but Brian and Ed, I don't know if Ed had anything more to say after we hijacked his time, but,
Well, I think Brian makes a lot of sense.
okay.
And I could be persuaded to see it from Brian's comments. And my only thought that I had was the taxing entity. But I can see Brian's point. So then it becomes a question of, what can the city afford to do? And we really don't know until we have a strategy of what the city might be able to afford to do or not do. And so I would think we really need to do an analysis of that aspect of it, right? It's kind of like looking at a new car. You really like it and you like the smell of it. but you kind of want to figure out how it's going to work in your budget.
And we do have some of that information in the next phase, in the next thing we need to talk about. But I'm curious, I'd like to know what Brian or what David and Stephanie, what
Thank
their
you.
thoughts are as well.
Yeah.
David, you want to go first?
Go ahead.
I'm not a fan of the city owning the building, but I think that realistically, that's the only way we're going to get this to come about. The reason, I mean, I don't, it would be nice to have the city own the whole thing and then lease it back to the sports people for a portion of it, just as long as I don't want the city to get into managing all of it. I mean, that is what I would like to avoid. I'm a little confused on the cost where that proposed expansion area. So if that's where the turf or something else would go, is that included? So if we built the expansion, everything would cost 11 million. And the reason I'm asking is because it makes sense if we're going to need that space that we build it now. It'll be cheaper to build it now than to get everybody to come back and all the contractors and the engineering to be redone to build the expansion. So if we're going to do it, let's do it right and do it one time. I guess to summarize where I'm at on that is that, yes, I guess the city is going to have to own the building. I don't know how we're going to pay for it. People think that this is a wonderful idea, and it is a wonderful idea, but the aquatic center was also a wonderful idea until we said, now this is what it's going to cost you. And then all of a sudden it wasn't such a wonderful idea. So
True.
we just have to be very, very clear to the public that if this is how they want their tax dollars spent, this is how it will impact them as an individual taxpayer, to make sure that people really want, this is how they want their money spent. That's my thing. It's definitely needed in the community. I mean, I understand, I don't have children, but I hear about the need for a sports center and a rec area, especially for places for teenagers to do something. We don't have anything. So I'm hearing all that. I'm just concerned when I see that price tag that people aren't understanding how much that's going to cost. They think the city's just going to pay for it and that the money just comes from heaven or something. I don't know.
Good point.
Your turn, David.
So I think that the city side of it, I think we should own, because I think we're going to have it longer. I think I view it as a long-term piece, and I think we're going to need it longer than 10 years or 15 years or whatever would be agreed upon there. So I'm in favor of the owning side of that part of it. As far as the total cost of it, I'm not real sure what we need exactly. I know parts of those we need, parts of them we don't. I think that it'd be used by all ages. That would be my 2 cents on it is that this isn't designed for soccer. It's not designed for softball or baseball or basketball. It's designed for everything. It's designed, the walking track I think is important because I think indoor walking is needed. We have a lot of folks that walk at malls right now, or they did at one point. I don't think they are right now because of COVID, but I think, you know, that's kind of disappeared, and I don't know that that's as prevalent. The Y in Indianola would always get more use in my mind. Yeah, I was a member of the Y for years, and the Y in Indianola always had people. They have a small track up on top of their one court, basketball court, and it had more use up there than I had seen anywhere else in the building on a regular basis. So I think it's needed. I think that would be one piece that would be there. My piece that isn't in any of this, and probably you talk about future expansion, is not a today thing, but I think that an indoor pool, rather than having an outdoor pool complex, I would rather see us spend the money and put an indoor pool in that can be used year round. And to me, this would be an ideal spot if we're putting this other stuff in, and it's a city-owned building, to put the pool to the north of that in that expansion area. but again, that's just me saying that because I think that that's a better use of, and we get more use out of it than we do our outdoor pool long term. So kind of my 2 cents on all that. Does that answer all your questions?
Does mine. And I think that expansion area, you know, when we get to the point where we want to expand, then at that point in time, you start talking about what do you want to expand? Do we need more courts? Do we need an indoor pool? And that at that point in time, you make that decision. So we're coming up to full 60 minutes here. Holly, what else do you need from us?
I would just throw in really quickly some points for you guys to consider as everybody's thinking about this later. What we have been talking about with the developers, they were somewhat not led to believe, but previously we were given a lot of direction in that the city does not want to be in the business of owning facilities like this or land or things of that nature. So that's kind of the direction we've gone down with these guys. They know that it could go either way. But what we were really looking at with them was everything they put together was based on this kind of $6 million number that we had sort of set aside in our minds with discussion when we were working with Ignite and that project before. And so with that, what we were looking at doing, and they've run the numbers 1,000 times to figure out how they would best use that 6 million if we were able to do that as sort of an incentive, but that would be essentially our prepaid lease. So if they do build it, own both sections, and we did the $6 million, you know, forgivable loan or whatever you want to call it, prepaid lease that they would get at the time the facility is complete and open, then that would be our lease that would give us that full use of that public side of the building, the court side of the building, for as many years as we negotiate out of that 6 million. They have a pretty good idea of what that lease rate would cost generally anywhere for that size. So we would have this agreement in place that 6 million would buy us so many years of full use in there. We would work out the additional amount for the field space, field time that we would also want for the city. And then we would probably work it to where there was a 75% tip rebate for maybe 10 years on the taxable value of that facility. So the 6 million would help them get the thing built, it would help them with financing, but we would get full use of that 6 million. So it's really, that's our cost to use it. And then the 75% tax rebate for 10 years would be as an incentive for them because they're building this project and bringing in traffic and new businesses and that sort of thing. So that's kind of what we were looking at. Of course, we can go down a different road if the city is really interested in owning the facility. A couple things really quickly that I would consider with that is if we do own it, then we also have to purchase the land. And then it's not a taxable entity. So we were kind of looking at this as if they own it, we lease a portion of it from them. There's still a little bit of taxes coming back from that project for servicing and different things that we need it for. And then also at the end of when we run out of our kind of $6 million lease, we could renegotiate. Maybe at that point we want to buy it from them, or we renegotiate at a different rate to continue doing what we do, or build another additional building if we've grown enough to where we need more space. So those are just things to think about. I am completely neutral.
I had one more thing to think about. Could I add one more thing to think about? Jim, what are the differences in liability if we lease the space for use when we need to, or if we own the facility?
There's going to be liability either way. I mean, if we're controlling the facility and we're doing programming in there, we're going to have pretty similar liabilities.
Yes. Yeah. I think, Holly, you kind of misconstrued at the time we were first talking about that when we said we didn't want to own it. At the time, I was thinking we didn't want to get in the business at all. I don't want to lease it. I don't want to own it. I don't want anything to do with us being in the business of athletics. I have been convinced by the need of the city, and Jackie and everybody has talked about that there is a need. And so I have been personally swayed in that. But if we do have to do one or the other for the benefit of the city, then it should probably be purchased. I think that's where I at least sent the wrong message to you.
I mean, Brian,
And
go ahead, Jackie.
I was just going to say, I just want to make sure. And I initially had a bad reaction to the notion that some council thought we should own it. I have since, come down off the ledge a little bit. And I see the wisdom and value, frankly, both ways. But owning it means managing it and all of that stuff. Which is just another, certainly it's not something we get into now, but it's another thing to consider as we move forward, if that's what we're going to do.
But if we own our side and the other folks own the other side, can't we have them manage both sides?
Yes, they have a management arm to their business, and that's a lot of what they do in all of their different facilities. So they would do that if we asked them to. We would just pay them up, and then they would manage both sides.
So if they're managing, does that mean any revenue made off rentals goes to the management company? How does that work?
No, we would just pay them like a flat rate to help in the areas that we would need the management for. So Robin, if you were able to use those, if we were still kind of the primary users of that sort of public side or the indoor courts, then you would program however you want to program those hours and times. If there were leftover hours and days that you weren't able to fill, they would fill them with other users. So you guys would just kind of work through that space and time together and how you want to do that, but we would just pay them a flat fee.
Okay, so we would work through the management company to reserve time in our building for our programs, correct?
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm just thinking through this.
Okay.
We're talking because we're still on if we own it. Yes.
But I think that's one of the rabbit holes that we don't need to go down right now, right? I mean, that's something that we would work into whatever agreement we have. How do we go about doing that?
Right. So do you have enough information to go back to them and
So we're leaning more towards the city owning the public space, but not their building. Let them do their thing with their building, right?
I think
That's
that's
fine.
Mayor, I have a question before we walk away from it, not to complicate it too much, but in my own mind, just trying to understand. Okay, so we're looking at a TIF rebate situation overall, right? I mean, part of the operation of the payment is a strategy. How does us owning or not owning that property affect our TIF repayment thing? I mean, if we own that property, right, I assume we wouldn't pay taxes to ourselves.
That is correct.
What,
May I speak?
what's the impact?
May
I mean,
May I join?
yeah, go
Please.
for it, Gene.
Okay. Just a couple thoughts. I was thinking about when we were talking, if the city does own it, there would be no TIF increment generated. So if the private company owns it and it's valued at 20 million, we generate increment off of that. Then we can utilize that to pay back any debt we put in for infrastructure and rebates to the developer. If you decide that you'd rather have the city own it, it would strictly be a debt service debt. So the debt service levy, pretty sure we'd have to go to a vote, which is not a big deal either. I mean, if you're really wanting to know if the people want it. If you did want to use TIF, if we owned it, we would have to generate new value within the city. We're looking at the next couple of years of TIF expiring about 150 million. Echo will expire in 2024 and Legacy next year. So, or the year, well, 2023, but when we're looking at next year at this time, we'll be looking at 2023 budgets. So just a couple things to think about while we're discussing who owns or how you want to finance it.
So Jean, can I ask maybe a more simple question or ask for a more plain answer? In terms of our financial stability, what would your recommendation be, that we own it or that we don't own it, or that we own part or not any, I don't know, whatever?
I think it's just what strategy you want to go with. If the developer or whoever owns it, again, it'll be a lot easier to determine if we can have, we'll have TIF money coming in that we can utilize for 20 years, that the revenue from, even if we're going to pay back everything, and, we'll probably pay for the infrastructure and offer some rebates. So yes, but at least we'd have that money, generate that value to generate that increment to do. Otherwise, we'd have to utilize other TIF areas. And in a couple of years, if we didn't generate enough additional value, then we're going to have to look at just simply a debt service tax levy. I don't know if that was I hope that was simple enough.
And we would have lease revenue from them.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're just seeing the numbers, but I'm just throwing out some things to think about. I don't know if there's one better way than another, but
yeah, that was my question. If you had an opinion about what was better, and I'm not saying you should one way or the other, but the fact that you're not sure that there's one better than the other is a good enough answer. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to definitely dig into the numbers a little bit more. Obviously, we've all just, like Holly said, she got them a few hours ago. I just want to throw that out there while we're talking.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The last thing I would just want to confirm with you guys. So I know we have to dig more into the numbers to really kind of have a definitive direction for the developers in terms of owning it. But in terms of the add-ons or the base model, kind of which direction do we think we would go? And I know that probably changes if we're owning it versus leasing it from them. I mean, do we have an idea generally if we just want to do the whole thing, get everything that we need and want, and just figure out the funding mechanisms for that moving forward? Or do you just want to start with that very basic model?
I think we need to have another meeting to talk about that, because it's going to take another hour and a half to figure out if we want 4 courts or 2 courts or turf, or is it baseball or softball or soccer or volleyball or pickleball or whatever.
Pickleball.
Yeah, pickleball.
So
It's hard for me to answer that question without numbers. I'm a numbers person. I have to see how it's all going to work out.
I think we need to go. I think we need to have you and Jean and Luke go through the numbers and then circle back around to see what do we really think we can put in it.
Yes.
I would just add that this complex would hopefully bring a hotel or 2 into that area, and I would think that a portion of hotel motel taxes from those should help pay for this as well. I mean, in my mind, that's another source of revenue that is going to come in when you get something like this.
Right.
People will come from other areas and stay here, and if they can stay somewhere and walk, they would prefer that than having to drive all over. So.
Agreed. And I think you're going to see some restaurants come in. We're going to get some tax dollars from that. Can we? Well, no, I'm not going to go there on that. So, because I'm just going to go down another rabbit hole, and I don't want to do that.
So I guess one of the questions that I have as we're wrapping this up is, what I understand is we all believe that we need it, and there's a consensus that we should own at least part of it. And I understand there's some other things that have to be worked out, but I mean, y'all see the price tag, and are we willing to work towards spending that kind of money? I guess is my question, because all of this discussion, if we're going to say there's no way we're spending it, then all of this discussion to me is unnecessary. So I just want to know if we all are willing to, if assuming that we can figure out how to do it, willing to put the money out there to make this project happen.
Well,
Well, I'd say if we can afford to do it, we should.
I
Because
think
it's
we
not,
all said yes to
it's
that.
not going to get any cheaper.
what'd you say, Stephanie?
I thought that we had all said yes to that question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the idea was that Gene, Holly, and Luke were going to circle around, figure out the numbers, look at what's affordable, and then come back to us or what we can afford, and then come back to us and say, what do you want in it?
Just last point of clarification really quick and I'm done. And we're just looking at the portion of the building. We don't want to own their portion and lease that to them, right? Like let them do their thing on their other,
Everything's
is that correct?
I think they're all options to look at or see what they say. I think all of that is negotiable. It's just a level of ownership and lease, whether they do this part or all of it, or we do this part or all of it. And then just to see what we get for the dollars, the track, the courts, the community area. I think that's a good way to make it inclusive for all age groups.
And the fields, those will be theirs. That's kind of their bread and butter.
Okay.
I mean, we could maybe, buy a couple of acres and have just city fields as well. But that kind of bulk area, those pods, those will absolutely want to be theirs. But the rest of the building, I'm sure, is kind of up for grabs for them.
So I would just say that after listening to Gene, I would rather see us not own that piece and leasing it from them. I'm just changing my mind, sorry. I think that
And when you say that piece, what exactly are you talking about, David?
The four courts piece of it. I think that us leasing it from them, I think that if there's a way to put it into the agreement that after say 20 years, we get a chance to buy it from them at that point. I think that should be something that's in there, but I don't know that. I think that this is getting back to how to pay for it. I think that some of that has to happen, and I think that them owning it makes it so that it's feasible to do.
But David, if it's a long-term capital lease, we have to report it as owned anyway. In most cases, financially, you know that.
Or city, it doesn't matter. Right, Gene?
Boy, how about Mayor? How about if we ask them to take a look at either way? Right?
Yeah, that's
Because it
good.
looks at the financial aspects of it. So, okay, if we go down this road, this is what it looks like. If we go down that road, that's what it looks like. And these are how you have to get it done on this road. This is how you got to get it done on the other one.
Exactly.
This is a complex transaction. Needs looked at.
It's like Jackie said at the beginning, we've never done anything like this. So I think we want to watch our footsteps and make sure we do it right.
Yes.
Here, here.
So Holly, you got everything, or is it muddy?
It's muddy, but you know what? That is okay because that's how these projects work. I've got enough to move on with.
Okay. You can report back at the next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody good?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Good discussion.
Yeah, very good discussion. And Adam, thank you for being here. It's good to have you in reserve. Sorry we didn't get to you.
What I'm here for.
All right. Maybe next time.
Happy to come back.
All right, thank you. Okay, item 5 on the agenda is welcome of guests and public comment. Thank you for being a part of our discussion, and thank you for being at our meeting. We'd like to open up and allow anybody who wants to speak to non-agenda items. We'll give you a 3-minute limit, 3-minute time limit if you want to speak to council. We can't take action on these tonight because they're not on the agenda. And if you'd like to speak to anything in the consent agenda, now would be the time as well. So would anybody like to address council tonight? Seeing no Zoom hands and hearing nobody, we will move on to item 6. I think Gunnar Olson and
Andrew?
Todd Ashby are here from the MPO to talk about the Economic Development District Initiative. So we'll go ahead and give it over to you guys.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. My name's Todd Ashby. I'm the director at the Des Moines Area MPO. With me tonight is Gunnar Olson and Andrew Collins, and we'll walk through a presentation here shortly. Would like to thank again for their time, and also like to thank Stephanie Riva, who sits on our executive committee and policy board, represents the area very well, and was also instrumental in pulling together some stakeholders from Warren County that we did a similar presentation to. And Warren County's Board of Supervisors passed a resolution of support for this endeavor. We started looking at an economic development district a couple years ago. There's some opportunities that they provide, and we were looking into how we could take advantage of that. With the recent pandemic and the presidential disaster declaration, it brought it back to fore, because it presents another opportunity to form this through that designation. So again, thank you for your time. I'm going to turn it over to Andrew now, and he'll walk through the presentation, and appreciate the opportunity. Go ahead, Andrew.
Thanks, Todd. I just want to introduce myself for those of you who don't know me. My name is Andrew Collins. I'm the principal planner here at the Des Moines Area MPO. And before we jump into exactly what an economic development district is, we like to kind of show you where they are. So on the map on the right, map of Iowa, as you can see, central Iowa is the only place in the state that is not part of an economic development district. Map on the left, you can see that where EDDs are nationwide. You can see that they cover areas of very large, very small, and everywhere in between. The areas that we're targeting here in central Iowa are the 7 counties in green. Those are the counties of Boone, Dallas, Story, Jasper, Polk, Marion, and Warren. As Todd mentioned, this, due to the national disaster declaration due to COVID-19, this represents an opportunity for us to undertake this initiative. It's the first time we've been eligible since 2008, and not to think we're the only ones doing this. Marion County, Marion County, Indianapolis are also undertaking this due to the disaster declaration as well. Next slide. So what exactly is an economic development district? Well, at its basic function, it is a designation by the United States Economic Development Administration, or EDA. So this designation is given to regions that have experienced economic distress. And the reason why we here in central Iowa require a disaster declaration is because we just traditionally don't meet the traditional distress metrics that EDA uses. So we are kind of beholden to the one-off disaster events that make us eligible. So these are regions that are multi-jurisdictional in nature. So they're often comprised of multiple counties, and the goal is to plan for the economic resiliency of the region and then provide support for member communities. And here is kind of an opportunity for us to explain exactly what they're not. So an economic development district is not like the Chamber of Commerce or like the Greater Des Moines Partnership. It's not like your local economic development office or economic development corporation, and it does not recruit business. An economic development district works on behalf of its member communities. So it works for cities and counties, much like those organizations I mentioned work for businesses and those sort of entities. The EDD works on behalf of the communities. They're basically two sides of the same coin working towards one goal. Next slide. So the benefits of an economic development district. Well, first off, they are the first entity to receive EDA funding during major disasters. Just a case in point, through the CARES Act, economic development districts all across Iowa, every single one got $470,000 in no match funding. And that is something that they all got, and central Iowa did not. That goes towards fighting COVID-19 impacts in those regions. In addition to those kind of one-off funding opportunities, there's an annual planning grant that's awarded to economic development districts, and that's used to administer the development district itself, and also provide technical assistance and staffing for some other initiatives. But that planning grant requires a local match as well. But it just helps in general improve applications for federal funding applications for all different kinds of grants. The reason you need, by the very being of an economic development district, you prove your need through having gone through that process and showing economic resiliency. So in addition to the funding portion of that, the economic development district provides staff support for the application administration of various grants, not just EDA grants, but grants of all different kinds from the government. It also helps identify funding opportunities from various levels of government as well. And thing we like to note too is just that staff support helps fill gaps by supporting projects that may or may not be able to move forward just because there might not be that technical assistance or anything else helping to move a project on the fringes forward. And lastly, the regional plan, something in order to be an economic development district, we have to have what's called a comprehensive economic development strategy, or CEDS. What that does is it catalogs priority projects and just generally improves the competitiveness in grant applications. So the CEDS doesn't replace any of the economic development planning or activities that are currently taking place. Rather, it just takes all of those initiatives and information, such as from comp plans, Tomorrow Plan, Capital Crossroads, what have you, compiles it together to meet the federal required outline for that, and puts it into one document for us to be able to submit to EDA. Next slide. And to give you an example of what kind of funding we're talking about from EDA, we went back and looked through the last 10 years of annual reports they put out for Iowa just to pull some projects out, examples of funding of that. So City of Cedar Rapids got $1.7 million to help relocate a water main for flood resiliency for the Quick Growth Factory in 2017. There have been a couple awards across the state to community colleges to provide some technical assistance and training. Sioux City got some funding for their Gateway Airport project 2014, and the City of Dyersville got $1 million for their Field of Dreams project 2013. And this is not an exhaustive list, it's just meant to illustrate the kind of projects that have been funded here in the state. So what exactly does it take to form an economic development district? Well, first off is that every county that's being proposed, it has to be part of that presidentially declared disaster declaration, which has already been done due to COVID-19. The agency requesting funding must have adequate representation on the board. That's something we're working on. That will require a new organization to be formed that can meet those board requirements, because there's nothing really that meets those requirements right now. The big one, though, is having the support of all the counties within the economic development district area. I'll get back to that here in a second. But we also have to have concurrence from the state, the governor's office, working with them on that, and then having that local match for the planning grant to move the EDD forward. So when we talk about the support from the counties, there's two phases or steps to that. The one that is the most important is having a support resolution from the County Board of Supervisors from each county. What that does is it allows that county area to be part of the EDD designation. And then it also allows not only the incorporated, but incorporated parts, both areas, to be able to join the economic development district later on. So if a county doesn't pass that resolution, the cities within that county are not eligible to join later on. But if the county does provide a support resolution, they can. I'm happy to note that Warren County actually passed their support resolution. They're the first to do so, and they did that a few weeks ago at their Board of Supervisors meeting. And then lastly, we have to have that CEDS that I mentioned before completed as part of our grant or application package to EDA. So we like to compare it to the long-range transportation plan of the MPO, just like that, except instead of focusing on transportation, it looks at economic growth instead. So these are our next steps. Todd mentioned we had a meeting of stakeholders. Thank you, Stephanie, for helping with that. Just looking at letting everyone know what an EDD is, doing this presentation, and then soliciting input on it. Meeting with the County Board of Supervisors. I mentioned we already met with Warren County. We're in the process of meeting with all the other counties as well. And again, reiterating the fact that counties only have to provide support resolutions, although they're not required to form the EDD, or excuse me, join the EDD right away. Everyone is given a choice after the resolutions have passed to join. And then lastly, the governor needs to support our designation request. So with that, I'll take a breath and be happy to answer any questions that any of you
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
First, how are these types of entities administered? Are they normally administered by a board then that's composed of all these participating counties and cities? And then so they have their own budget and there's some kind of an assessment out to the organizations that participate or the communities that participate?
Yeah,
Is that
correct. Yeah, I'll take a stab at it first. And Andrew can correct me when I'm wrong. Yeah, there would be a board formed of all the entities that have decided to join with whether that's all the counties and cities. But yeah, they would all be represented. There'd be some, as Andrew mentioned, some private representation on the board. We've been working with the Greater Des Moines Partnership to help pull that together. And that'd be part of the formation documents as we go forward. And to match that funding that comes from EDA, there is a local match required. And so there would be some sort of local participation to help fund that. We've looked at a couple different numbers, and a very conservative number would be about 15 cents per capita. We think it would all depends on how many jurisdictions join the organization.
And to add to that, yeah, the administration portion of that would be proposed to be provided by the MPO through contract. So it would be a standalone board with staff support from the MPO.
Oh, okay. So it would kind of be an add-on to the MPO operation, more or less.
Yeah, the new organization would have access to everything that the MPO has and then some.
Okay. Then the other question was that in your presentation, you indicated that it could be a resource for all types of grant funding, the solicitation of that. So we do a lot of grants for the library, police, fire, all that. Would this be a vehicle to assist us in writing those grants and nailing down those grants?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Well, I am glad that Warren County passed a resolution of support for it. I think this is huge for us, especially to get involved with this. And since this is our only time, who knows when we'll have time again?
Yeah.
Let's hope for not a long time.
Yeah, exactly. But it does provide a unique opportunity for the region. So
yeah, absolutely. Do you guys have anything else?
So, appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, Todd, Andrew, and Gunnar, thanks for coming tonight, and thanks for sitting through our discussion on a sports complex.
No problem.
Happy to.
This is a good thing to do, this EDD.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, item 7 is our consent agenda. In the consent agenda tonight, we have approved the January 7th, 2021 minutes of the regular city council meeting, expenditures, we have tax abatements, we have renewal of Class C liquor license, Class B wine permit and Class C beer permit for Fairway, renewal of Class C liquor license with outdoor service and Sunday sales to Legacy Golf Club. We have a resolution ordering construction of certain public improvements, Highway 28 drainage improvements at Hakes Drive to Wright Road. We have approving preliminary plans and fixing a date for hearing of March 4th, 2021 and taking of bids therefore. We have resolutions setting dates involved with the community cleanup event of 2021. has set public hearing for February 4th, 2021 to approve the proposed maximum property tax levy for general fund, liability, property, and self-insurance costs, and special revenue levies for employee benefits. Have a resolution setting February 4th, 2021 for a public hearing regarding a rezoning request for 1008 North Avenue to establish an infill PUD, and we have monthly reports. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Motion.
How about a second?
Second.
Okay,
Pick one.
so take Reva as the motion and Baker as the second. All those, Lindsay, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Reba,
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston.
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. Item 8, we have old and new business for consideration, discussion, and possible action. First on the list is a presentation from Mark True, North River Arts Council, and consideration of a resolution to provide financial support for North River Arts Council. Mr. True, thanks for sitting through everything, and I appreciate you being here. The virtual floor is yours.
Well, thank you for having me. That was enjoyable. I've been involved in soccer in my past here in Carlisle, so I've touched on a little bit of what you're going on. So that was very intriguing to see what you're taking on. Thank you again for having me here. My name is Mark True. I live in Carlisle, but I am the president of the North River Arts Council. The purpose, of course, for this presentation is to talk to you about a master art plan and request a portion of the funding for that master art plan. The North River Arts Council has been around for a year now. We were formed a year ago with the goal of making a place for artists and arts. Specifically, that means a place for building community amongst artists in this county, an ability to collaborate, develop some programming, work on development issues to help improve the artist community for the sake of creating more art for our communities. So while we're making a place for artists, we also want to make a place for art. We've looked at that, and that may include exhibits, galleries, studio space, public art, art education, those kinds of long-term activities. In the first year of our existence, we basically spent a lot of time on programming. We've been meeting monthly, first live, and then we started doing Zoom meetings because of the pandemic, bringing together artists from across the county. We have artists represented from Carlisle and Hartford, and Indianola and Norwalk and Cumming. And we've had some guests from around central Iowa come talk to us about their art, talked about how they've grown their art business, and connected some of these artists to some opportunities. Those are kind of the big rocks, the big things that we've been thinking about based on the input from our membership. But what we need now is to understand the greater needs of the community. And we've reached out to Group Creative after a few recommendations from some folks. Group Creative is a consulting agency in the arts out of Des Moines, and they have put together an arts master plan proposal that I believe we have shared with you to take a look at to help us go more deeply, more specifically, community by community, to understand the wants, the needs, and the desires of the community, so that we understand what the artists need to do for the art community. Interesting that we found out while thinking through this that some research on skills that employers are looking for, the top 5 skills, the number 1 skill is creativity. And we think creativity is something that the arts help generate. So as we were looking at this plan, we considered a regional approach. We've taken a regional approach with the North River Arts Council. That's why it's not called the Carlisle Arts Council or the Norwalk Arts Council. We thought we'd bring together the artists across the northern half of the community of the county, and we've found that we've been able to go a little farther than that. So we have this proposal for $10,500, and we specifically asked them to put it together as a regional approach, a regional plan. And we've broken down that request by per capita. and we're asking Norwalk for $3,750 towards that, Indianola towards $5,250, and Carlisle $1,400. That, and we've had conversations with Carlisle already. They are trying to look for additional funds in this current budget, and then we'll be planning on some funds in their fiscal year 2022 budget. The breakdown, that number there includes the master plan. There are also some other elements in there that I'll talk about in a second. The focus on the countywide plan is going to help us bring together our efforts so that we're not kind of in our little silos doing things and we're not being very efficient. We want to make sure what each community does so that the resources from each community can be shared, particularly those artists that are working across the entire county. And we don't want to keep having to reinvest some of the learning time over and over by each community. We found out there's an economic impact, and this number has been kind of consistent in all the studies I've seen, of 6-to-1 return on your arts investment. We've had some anecdotal evidence. Jay Byers, who's with the Greater Des Moines Partnership, said public art leads to vibrancy in our communities, enhances quality of life, and makes our region a more attractive place for people to live and work. Other research of the public's ability and interest in funding the arts show that 72% of the public believes the arts unify communities regardless of age, race, and ethnicity across all demographics. When we look at their willingness to pay for that, we found that 60% of Americans approve of arts funding by local government. That's the highest number. 58% by state government and 54% by federal government. So they're looking for local governments to support the arts. We've reached out to Group Creative to put this together, and one of the questions we had when we did this research, who would do this, is what experience do they have in doing these kinds of consulting work. In Ankeny, they were the group that did the Ankeny High Trestle Experience Master Plan. In Altoona, they've been very active with the Altoona Public Art Plan, the City Hall Art Project Management, Altoona Civic Services Center Art Project Management, and the Altoona First Avenue Roundabout Sculpture Project Management. So that's what a lot of their time is arts project management. In Grimes, they're currently doing a similar plan, like we're talking here, a public arts plan. They were the group actually that did, if you've seen it, the river constellation sculpture that's in the Waterworks Park that lights up at night. They were the group that managed that project. We are seeking other sources of revenue. We've just broken out this first $10,500 for the cities. We're planning on doing the Warren County Philanthropic Partnership Grant and filing a intent to apply, and that's due February 7th. When they're available, when they open up back up again, we're going to certainly seek funding from the Prairie Meadows Community Betterment Grant, the Arts Build Communities Grant, Community Attraction and Tourism Grant. And I've understood in the last couple of weeks that Bravo does have some money. I had heard earlier in the last couple of months that Bravo was not going to be having as much money available. That has changed recently. I heard a report last week that they have some operation funds available. And we will also reach out to Warren County at some point in time. The plan includes a $10,000 or has a $10,500 price tag to it, plus an optional $4,000 per community to put aside for the project that may come out of this. So their goal is to go out and their plan is to go out and talk to the communities, and they will do community groups in Norwalk, community groups in Indianola, and community groups in Carlisle to identify what the issues are, what the opportunities are, what the desires are for that community, and then put together a plan of action. They will actually, they'll also help our Arts Council kind of organize a little bit more along these lines to make sure that we're going in the correct direction. And then there's an option of the $4,000 additional to manage a specific project that will come out of each one of these. So one of the deliverables is a project that will be identified for each community. That may be, for example, maybe Carlisle is looking for gallery space. Maybe Norwalk wants public art. Maybe Indianola wants more art education opportunities. That's what we need to try to figure out. And then we want to be able to work together to make sure that we get these things done in order to make a place for the artists to present their art and meet a specific need that's identified in this plan. That's my request of you. Are there any questions about what we're looking for, what the deliverables are?
I guess I have a question for you.
Please.
One of our park projects around that you created up there, Vaughn, with a walking trail, we were talking about trying to get statuary and that sort of thing in there. Would such things as that be a piece of a master art plan for a community?
Absolutely. It would actually inform that decision for you. It would let you know if your community wants that and how badly they want it. And it would kind of identify they want public art versus an art gallery, or they would want more art education. So this would be actual confirmation of whatever input you've already had to put up public art. And the second, that $4,000 placeholder is for them to help manage that process, seek bids, manage the entire process for you. That doesn't include the price of the art, but it's including them managing the process.
Oh, that's interesting. Thank you.
I have two questions. The first, so the 10,005 for the plan is shared between Norwalk, Indianola, Carlisle, but then you're going to go to those other entities for other funding, or you're going to see if they will also help pay for the plan? I'm just a little confused about.
I'm going to try to get $10,500 from the 3 communities. I will go after for additional funding. If I'm successful with that additional funding, I will put it towards and spread it out amongst the same per capita for each of these projects. I would love for me as an arts council to come back to you and say, okay, we've got this plan and there are these 3 projects out there. I've got some funds that I can spread out to help support those funds. Okay. And I can't do anything until I collect the $10,500 to start the plan. So I will continue to fundraise until I get the $10,500 to let them start the plan.
Okay. And then my second question actually is directed to council. We formed a public arts committee maybe 2 years ago, and I think David and Jackie, you're on that. Has that group met? Do they not already have a plan? Were they not involved in the placement of the art at Elizabeth Holland Park? Is this something that would be beneficial to that group? Is it something that group already does? I don't know if we're duplicating efforts.
I don't feel like we're duplicating the efforts. No, we didn't. We initially discussed some of the art at Holland Park, but we weren't part of the plan of where, when, and what exactly was placed. I don't think we've met for quite a while. I guess that's all I would comment. I don't know what else David has to add.
Nothing more to add to that at this point. We started a group, and I don't know that we ever had a defined, you're in charge of this group to get us going and meeting on a regular basis. And maybe that's the piece that needs to happen on that side. But I would see this as a benefit to that group to help guide them in things. I guess I have a handful of concerns. And Mark, hopefully you saw these ahead of time. Did you? Good.
I did. Yep.
Okay. So and I guess and the biggest one is that the North River Arts Council, the bylaws that are with the state, or not the bylaws, but the articles of incorporation states to benefit Carlisle, and that was concerning to me a little bit. And mine was more is it something that you guys can address? It's not a hard thing, I'm sure, to fix, but I'm sure this is what we were going to do, and then we grew and said, hey, let's do it this way, and I'm just guessing that's what happened. So
it's absolutely what happened in a very short amount of time. The articles say Carlisle and adjacent areas. That's the phrase that's in it, and we didn't look at that close. I went back and looked at our bylaws, and it says Northern Warren County. We have certainly expanded beyond that. We had original board representation from Hartford, 2 in Carlisle, 1 in Indianola, and 1 in Norwalk. On our current board now are 2 in Carlisle and 1 in Norwalk. And I would love if somebody would send me, Luke, can you connect me with your council? I would love to connect with you guys so that we can collaborate on these kinds of ideas. We've been in conversation with Indianola. We've not yet made a presentation because they just recently started up their Public Arts Commission. And one of their council members said they would be very excited to connect with us on this, and they would support it because they believe in a regional approach as well.
Mark, I had a conversation with both of the other city managers in Warren County, and they also supported some of those same concepts where it'd be advantageous to their communities. And yes, I can certainly get you in contact, emails for our council members.
Thank you. I really could like to connect with them. So this is basically to give us some guidance on how to help you, because we have a small population, a small input from the people that were on our group, and I want to get the community's involvement so that we know. I mean, I can imagine Carlisle, from the conversation I've had, wants public art along their trails. Trails are really big in Carlisle. It may be different in Indianola. The square probably plays a larger role in the arts community in Indianola. And in Norwalk, you've already had some public art. I don't know what that's going to be. So to have these conversations is vital for us to have some longer term goals and to support those goals.
This is Robin Lieber. So I just wanted to let council know, and then to kind of go off of Jackie's comment with the art committee that we have. It has not met in quite some time. Unfortunately, I think that falls under me, so I very much apologize. We do have a small fund for Elizabeth Holland Park Public Art. And so we do, for FY21, we would have money in that capital improvement fund to be able to cover the $37.50 that they're asking for if you wanted to use that. And then I also wanted to mention to both council and to Mark that myself and Luke Paris, who is our community development director, we have been in the beginning talks of getting together and creating some type of rotating public art at Elizabeth Holland. And like I said, very beginning stages, we don't have anything in writing. And that would have been something that we would have involved our committee with. And so having our committee and then this additional group, I think would benefit that project.
We look forward to that. We helped Carlisle identify and secure an artist for their trail project this last year. And they've asked us to look into some artists for some murals.
So Robin, am I hearing that right? This is Ed, that you believe something like this would be helpful to what you have going on or what you're trying to get going on in reference to our parks and artwork. Is that right?
Yes, from the little bit that I just heard Mark present, I think that it would be beneficial to have some type of a master, an overall master plan. But I'm definitely, we do have an arts committee. We just unfortunately haven't utilized them a lot because we just haven't had that project plan put together for what we want public art to look like in our community.
I guess, Mayor, from my standpoint, this sounds like a pretty good deal. And it'd probably be worthwhile for the city to do. Whether we, use the funding that we have sitting there now for artwork, or whether we look in another place, but either way, I think it'd be good for our city to participate in.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Go ahead.
No, I would say that since the committee hasn't really met, doesn't have a plan, I think this would be beneficial to have a plan. I would stop at that. So just the request for the $37.50 for the plan. I beyond that point, I would like to have another conversation about whether our city committee and our residents and our Parks and Recreation Department can manage the project installation, because they have already successfully managed an art project installation or two. So I'm in favor of the plan, so that we have some kind of idea of where we're going. And I'm very much in favor of getting more public art in the community.
Okay.
One additional benefit I'd like to talk about is, because our Arts Council has already been kind of formed, one of the things this group will be able to do was help identify how we can work with your arts group and with the Indianola Arts Group, and how we can collaborate more effectively. That's exciting to us to be able to understand how to work together.
Sure.
So I guess I do have, this is Robin Leeper again. I do have one question. You talked about applying to Warren County Philanthropic Arts Builds Communities, Prairie Meadows Betterment Grant. So if you're going to be doing all of that, are you doing that to then give money back to our community when we do the installation, or will we be competing with you if we look for these grants to help fund our projects?
I would commit to you that I would be looking for grants to spread out amongst at the same rate as we've broken it down here. So I don't want to be competing with you. I would go to these groups because I've got to get 10,500 before I can do anything. And if budgets take 6 months for somebody to do it, I'm going to keep going after the earlier dollars to get it before then. Say you commit in fiscal year 22, I'm going to go, and I don't know, I admit I'm new at this fundraising thing. If I've got to continue going out and getting money, and if I get the $10,000 before that, I will continue to go with this plan, and then your funds will be available in 2022, fiscal year 2022, to put towards your public art. I would commit to not get in a situation to compete against you, and because we are working together through this plan, there hopefully is going to be a whole lot more communication, so that we don't find ourselves in the same room submitting applications for the same dollars. Does that answer the question, Robin?
I think so. Yeah, thank you.
What else you got from council?
I was just going to add that I think working with North River Arts is better than trying to compete against, because I think that a collaborative effort makes more sense. And our community would never get this report probably for $10,000. I don't think, or what was our dollar amount? 3,500, 3,750. We wouldn't get this report for that amount, and neither would Indianola, neither would Carlisle. So I think doing it jointly makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? Or do we have any public comment? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the contribution and support to the NRAC in the amount of $3,750?
Motion. Second.
Okay, do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, I got a motion by Lester, a second by Cool. Lindsay, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Reva,
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Yes.
Lester.
All right, that motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Looking forward to seeing what you get, what you come up with for a plan.
So are we, but we certainly appreciate your commitment. And Luke, I'll reach out to you to figure out what next steps are, okay?
Sounds great. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you very much, folks.
Thank
Enjoy
you.
your evening.
All right. Okay, let's see. Item B on the agenda is a public hearing regarding a CDBG grant for community Wi-Fi. So we'll open up the public hearing at 7:53. So one of the requirements of getting the grant for reimbursement is to hold this public hearing. Luke and Jean, I'll turn it over to you.
I can take this one. This was the grant that we applied for as part of the COVID situation. We wanted to expand some outdoor wireless access to students so that when they went to parks or near the library or at City Hall, this would expand Wi-Fi coverage for anybody that didn't have that coverage at home. So we worked with our IT folks. We have that agreement with the school. So Tim Geyer helped step us through that, did the installation, and so the project has been completed. Now we're going and asking for the reimbursement.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Luke? Clarification? Lindsay, did we receive any oral or written comments on this item?
We did not.
Okay, any other public comment? Okay, so I'm supposed to ask these next two questions. First one is, are there any community development and housing needs of low to moderate income persons in the city and any planned or potential activities to address these needs? So do we have any public input on that? Hearing none, I'm going to say, are there any other community development and housing needs and any planned or potential activities to address these needs? And we'll go ahead and open that up, that item up for public input. Hearing none, we'll go ahead and close public hearing at 7:54 p.m. So item 8 is a resolution authorizing the execution of a CDBG IEDA reimbursement for grant funds for community Wi-Fi. So this is the resolution that authorizes the execution of the CDBG IEDA reimbursement for the grant funds that we use for the community Wi-Fi. Luke, you got anything to add? He's shaking his head no. Any discussion or comments from council? Or any public input?
Motion.
Second.
So the motion is to approve the resolution to authorize execution of reimbursement from the Iowa Economic Development Authority Community Development Block Grant Program contract. Is that correct?
Yes. That is my motion, yes.
Okay, so that's motion by Riva, second by Baker. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Lindsay, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Riva,
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item D is a resolution approving the site plan of Norwalk Secondary Campus. So this is the site plan for NPEC and the classroom additions at the high school. Luke Paris, anything to add?
No, sir, not really, other than we've reviewed the site plan. It meets our codes, and we'd recommend approval.
All right. Any discussion or comments from council?
Whoop, whoop.
I agree. I can't wait. I can't wait to see it built.
Get her done.
Get her done. So, any public comment?
On behalf of the school district and the school board, we want to thank Kate Baldwin. We want to thank the city council and especially all of the consultants in your offices for helping us with this project. We're looking forward to this project.
All right. Thanks, Kate. Any other public comment? Okay, can I get a motion to approve the site plan for Norwalk Secondary Campus as described and shown in attachment A attached here to and made a part thereof by reference?
Motion.
Motion.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. There we go.
I'll be a second then.
No, too late. It's motion by Cool, second by Livingston.
I want to be a second.
No. I think, okay, so everybody is seconding this one. Because we all want to see it done. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Lindsay, would you call a roll?
Councilmember Cool,
Yes.
Livingston,
Hell, yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Riva.
Yes.
All right, that motion carries. Congratulations, Kate. See ya.
Thanks to everybody. Bye-bye.
You bet. Item E is a discussion or Norwalk Low Moderate Income Rehabilitation Assistant Pilot Program Policy. So Luke Paris is going to go over this policy and ask for some solid guidance for the final draft of the policy, which will be brought to the next council meeting for approval. Take it away,
Yeah,
Luke.
thank you. Just to kind of recap a little bit, we'd presented the idea of doing a program like this at a work session. Went forward and kind of drafted up a program that we discussed at our last meeting, or I guess at the December 17th meeting. And following that meeting, we kind of had a thought of, we probably were ahead of the game asking you all to vote on it that night, knowing that there were probably some tweaks and stuff that we wanted to do. So for tonight, we kind of took a step back from that and said, let's just talk about the pilot program a little bit more and get our ducks in a row with where we want to proceed. And then we will go and make those final changes and bring that forward for you to consider. So there's no pressure to say we're going to come up with resolutions and stuff tonight. So we're just really trying to figure out where you want us to go with it. I did take some initiative from our last meeting and just made a few tweaks based on that discussion, which really came down to limiting the types of appliances that were eligible and then adding a section talking about like a time frame for completion of projects. But most of it, for the most part, remains unchanged. So it's just a matter of where we want to go from there. I would note that just to kind of go back to our discussion in October, we brought this up kind of as we had some low moderate income dollars that we could use to assist rehab. And we knew that there were some houses out there and some properties out there that could use some of that assistance. We have a couple properties in particular, so not to get into too many details, but so we wanted to start out, instead of doing a whole big long program that we really defined everything, we wanted to get some just general guidelines before you get that approved, go through the process with one of these property owners to see how this works and just trial and error some things, and use that as some guidance and some learning for how we might move forward. So a lot of these things, I just threw in a $25,000 cap. I said the program would be $50,000 initially. We can pull back on that stuff, and from a staff perspective, we don't have any issue with that. If need be, if we want to make it smaller scope so that we're just doing one project as a test, we're okay with that. We just wanted to start somewhere and kind of base it off of some other of the programs that I took a look at, and then based off of also we had some estimates done on some work that we knew might need to be done. So trying to get an idea on that. One piece of data that I did pull together for you all was a review of metro-wide and then kind of central Iowa, so metro-wide communities, so suburban communities, Des Moines Neighborhood Finance Corporation, and then just also a couple other communities that are in central Iowa, but of similar size. So that's kind of where I pulled that list from. And just looked at, how does it compare to what we were putting together? Do they have a program? What's their max and min awards? What types of things are eligible? How does their assistance work? And then do they ask for owner participation? So for the most part, something to note with this list is you'll see a lot of them look the same: Altoona, Ankeny, Bondurant. Most of the metro suburb that's in Polk County participates in something called the Metro Home Improvement Program that's administered through the Polk County Housing Trust Fund. So they basically pay into it, and then Polk County Housing Trust Fund runs basically a rehab program like we're talking about. So they don't have to go through all the work of that. Polk County Housing Trust Fund helps them do that. So it's a similar program, but they don't have the responsibility from a city level to take that on. So I guess with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions on that or entertain any discussion that we want to have about what you're thinking.
So I got a question real quick. So like with Altoona's in with the Public County Housing Trust Fund. So are they able to qualify for 12,500 from Altoona and the 6,500 from Polk County Housing Trust Fund?
You know, I didn't really look into that. My guess would be no, because I think what's happening is Polk County Housing Trust Fund is administering it. So like all these communities are paying into this program, and then the Housing Trust Fund is like the administering organization, but it's not Polk County Housing Trust Fund dollars. So I guess from that aspect, maybe they would award both because they're different pools of dollars being administered through the same organization. But I would just guess that they probably want it. It would probably be one or the other.
Or does that 6,500 only count for residents in the county?
You know, I didn't delve that much into Polk County's one other than just grabbing their dollars. That's a good question. I can see if I can get you an answer here as we're talking.
And then how long ago were those passed? And or when was that max award set?
I don't have that info either. Let's see. It looks like they formed it in 2007. I don't know if that number has been updated since 2007 in the last 13 years or not.
See, because I think based on that the 12.5 is low as far as how much it's going to really cost in today's dollars to do anything. That was my only question. Council, have at it.
Yeah, I'd agree that 12 grand's a little bit low. The original conversation we had about 25,000 is probably pretty realistic, I think. Because to be honest with you, you're not going to build a whole bunch for less than 20 grand. The other thing is the scope of the program. I think it'd be a good idea to go ahead and leave it limited at 50,000 and try to run 2 pilot projects and then see how those might work and what we want to change or do different. But I don't think it looks too bad the way it's sitting. Go ahead, Brian. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I just wondered if you asked them how popular these were in the various cities. Were they utilized a lot? Which ones were swamped with requests? How was it perceived?
I've not had those discussions. This data I just pulled off of their different program websites. So it was just a data dive.
Okay.
But we can do it. We can have that discussion. I can reach out to some of those folks, certainly.
I like the limitation on the interior stuff, the way it's worded. And nobody allows appliances.
Yeah. And so I guess to hit on that a little bit, when I wrote this policy, what I've presented to you data wise is kind of our peers in the central Iowa area. Whenever I'm writing something, you know, I try to take a look at what's around us, but I also try to just take a look at just general things, you know, so not trying to limit to us necessarily to what our neighbors are doing, but what else is out there in the world for whatever project I'm looking at. And so that idea was something that came up a decent amount in other programs, with the idea of trying to help with energy efficiency via utility bills. And the idea being that, you know, if you can help reduce utility bills, you can help have a positive impact on the ability of that individual to upkeep their home. So,
yeah.
Also, this helped us answer a question about the second mortgage and the logistics of it. The 5-year forgivable loan recorded as a second mortgage. It looks like a lot of them have kind of settled on that as a solving of the question.
Sure does.
So are there specific questions that you are looking to have answered?
Is that a question for Luke?
That was a question for Luke.
No, sorry. I guess really for me, it would be what are the funding levels that you want? What should we set things at? You know, I'm not have a particular interest one way or another. We'll do it however. And then do we want to try and limit it to a number of projects? I think Ed mentioned, you know, maybe the 50,000 gets us 2 projects, but do we put something in this pilot program that says we're only doing 2 projects? And if that's one that's 10,000 and one that's 15,000, and we don't touch the whole 50, then, you know, because one thing that does hang out there is we've not done this before. I think we can make it work. I mean, we certainly will. We wouldn't be proposing it to you if we hadn't, but you know, there's an unknown quantity of amount of workload that might have. So I wouldn't be opposed to saying, hey, we're only going to do 2 of them and see where that goes. And maybe we re-up it if we don't use all the dollars and do some more projects.
Yeah, I think that'd be okay to limit it to 2 projects because, well, first, you know, we don't really know for sure what we're getting into as far as workload. But secondly, it would give us some reasonable experience, you know, at how to do this and what we want to change on the design. So yeah, I guess, you know, you could do it that way. You could say we're going to max 50,000 available, limit to 2 projects, $25,000 of projects, max limit, something like that. To me, that makes sense.
Ed, do you think it needs to be 25 or would it be a little less, like 20? Okay. Or do you think?
Oh, whatever you want to do. I just don't think.
I can't decide either.
But see, I don't think you're going to get much done. I mean, well, I may be surprised. People may come in and want 12 and that somehow fixes the whole situation. But having done a few things around the house here in the last few years, I just think it's going to take some money. You know, I guess I'd be cautious about putting it down too far.
Okay, so I'll be the negative Nelly here. I really like the concept of the program. I really do, and I think it's something that's useful for our community, and I think it would really help some people get some things done, and it would improve some homes, the appearance of homes for people, and safety for homes for people that can't afford to do it. So I'm not saying don't do it, but it just gives me heartburn to think about the city managing this program. I know we're not part of the Polk County Housing Trust Fund. You know, there isn't a Warren County Housing Trust Fund as far as I know. There is a program through the Neighborhood Finance Corporation. You know, if somebody else could manage it, it would make me feel a lot better. I don't want to put city staff in a position of deciding which project is more worthy and which person is more worthy. I don't know how far into the weeds staff is going to have to go to these projects. I mean, who's making the call on, you know, do they buy the Cadillac of shingle or do they buy the good quality shingle that lasts for so many years? You know, what kind of paint, what kind of siding? You know, you get into aesthetics. I mean, how far is city staff going to go into that? How do you know, there's not an income contribution. I understand we talked about this before about, you know, I said skin in the game. I just wish that there was some way, and there is actually a way in the Metro Home Improvement Program, because I also did my research on that. Based on income, it depends on how much you can, it influences who gets the loan, I guess, or how much they get. So, you know, 80% of Warren County median income is a high number. I mean, Warren County median income is like $78,000. So what I don't want to have happen is somebody who makes like 79% of median income come in with a $25,000 project when there is somebody who's at 40 or 50% of income, and maybe we could do 2 or 3 of those and really help somebody who needs it more. I don't know how how we can do that, but I would really like to look at some kind of proration or some kind of a sliding scale of some sort that's based on income. I think it's going to take a lot of staff time. And so it's a great project, but the implementation gives me pause. As far as the specific details, I still object to the 25,000. I think maybe 10,000 or 10,000 might be too little. 15,000 I think would be adequate, at least, to give it a shot and see what's happening. I don't know if that's enough money. I don't know what contractors they would pick. I don't know. The second thing is that when it comes to structural improvements, I would really like to define what these structural improvements are. So again, I said last time, to me, drywall is a cosmetic thing. If it's got black mold, that's a health and safety thing. If it's just, beat up and needs painted, or you want to take a wall down, that's cosmetic. Now, if you're talking about floor joists, ceiling structure, that's structural. Plumbing, you've got to replace, you need to replace your pipes, or you need to replace your toilet. It's not just because you want to do a bathroom overhaul because your vanity looks old. So I really want to make sure that when we say structural repair, that somewhere, once we get into really defining what's covered by the program, that it truly is structural. And we had that health and safety addition there. And I think that's done. And now I'm done speaking.
Luke Paris, if I sent you an email back in 2019. I did some digging around for Luke Nelson regarding LMI stuff. And it was my understanding that Boone, Jasper, Marion, and Warren did implement a housing trust fund.
Yeah, so a couple things to go over from what you were talking about there, Stephanie. I guess the first one, Warren County did join up with Boone, Jasper, Marion to form a housing trust fund. Andrew at the MPO, who spoke earlier about the EDD, actually manages that for us. So they're in, I think, their first round of trying to give some funds out to some things. My discussions with Andrew in the past is that group doesn't have much of an appetite to try to manage this type of project either. They want to give money out to cities. They want to be an organization that funnels money down to the local level, as opposed to something like the Polk County Housing Trust Fund, which operates and administers programs using those dollars. So maybe that changes at some point in the future. But it didn't seem like there was the appetite from that group to do that. So that organization's out there. I don't know how much of a help they would be to us right now. In my talks with Andrew about that, he had mentioned that what his hope had been would be that in each county there might end up being a independent organization that would form that the cities could give money to, and that the housing trust fund could give those dollars to, that would operate something like this. So I don't disagree with that. I just don't know that I'm not sure if we're there yet. And so if we want to try to tackle something like this and give some assistance to some projects and to some properties, it might not be something that we wait around for. What was the other thought I'd had? I think something that maybe would help address some of your comments about the different improvements is maybe we just need to change that word from improvements to repairs. Maybe it's not an improvement. I'm not improving my property. I'm repairing something that's deficient. And that lines up with the language that a lot of these other ones use, is it's structural repairs that they're talking about. So that might be a way to address that just in the text of that. And then I guess just to hit a little bit on our headspace of where we came from, I agree with what Stephanie said completely. There's a lot of detail on implementation that's not addressed in here, that I started to go down that rabbit hole, and it was like a chicken and egg thing, right? Do I do all that work and bring you something that's really well thought out and 15 pages long, and then we decide not to do it? Or do we, since it's a pilot program, where I kind of landed was, let's put in some general guidelines And then what we're going to have to do, and it's going to cause us more work, but we're going to have to, on a project by project basis, we're going to have to define those terms for each project. So what does that mean? This house needs X, Y, and Z. Do they meet the general guidelines of this? Okay, they do. How is it getting done? How is it getting paid for? How's the work actually being done? Is the city hiring the contractor and paying that contractor? All those details are things that we're going to have to work through. And my intent would be that we would come back to you with an agreement for that project that would spell out those details. And when we went through that process and went from project start to finish, we could then go back and look at that agreement that we brought to council that was between the city and the property owner. And that could help give us some guidance on how we might change this program if we decided to make it a full program. We can say this worked this way well over here, but this other project, maybe they were just a roof and we end up with some issue with how we structured stuff, and we had to overcome that in the process. And that can kind of inform us on what's the right way to do some of these things as we go forward.
I think you're going to need to get your feet wet to really know what it's going to take to manage it.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. And the other piece of it is that as far as the long term goes, we could probably have a discussion with that housing authority, to see if over the long term we could have them manage a program for us, right? Or what it would take to be able to get them to manage a program for us.
Yep.
Or if we jump into some other organization, I don't know, But I guess I would like to try it, see how it works out, and come back and, modify it as we need to modify it. Otherwise, you can do analysis paralysis, I'm afraid.
What else is?
I said most of what I had to say last time. I don't really have anything new to add. I agree with Stephanie's concerns about the management and how much time and energy it may take, but I also agree that we don't know until we try it. I do like the idea of changing improvements to repair. And I said last time, I think the dollar amount is fine. We have the ability within this program to provide less money if more money is not warranted. But the most that can be provided is 25. And some of the houses that I can think of that could benefit from this and families that could benefit from this, I'm not sure 25,000 is enough. So I think the money's more than, I think that the values are appropriate.
Anybody else?
Haven't heard from David yet.
I'm fine with it. I think it's a pilot program. I think we do 2 projects and see where the lumps are, the bumps are, and work its way out. I had concern last time about the dollar amount, but I'm with Jackie. I've driven around enough. I think the dollar amount is adequate at this point.
One thing I was thinking through a lot of different things there that I forgot to circle back to was the idea of how do we select these. So that's something that we can work on between now and when we come back at our next meeting and just get some ideas on how do we pick them? Because I thought Stephanie had some good points there about, you're kind of picking winners and losers at some point. And is that on staff, or is it just a metrics of the person with the lowest income percentage gets it? I don't know. I can look at seeing how some of the other programs do that and write up some guidance to include in the policy for that.
Could be as easy as first in, first out.
Good.
That had been kind of my initial thought, but yeah, we'll see.
First come, first served.
I'll bet you a lot of them have a criteria though that they've got established at a time. Rating criteria.
Yeah, the other programs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let me ask you this. Is everybody okay with 50,000 for the pilot?
I am.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
No,
Okay. This, I got four yeses and one no, so let's go with 50,000 for the pilot. And how does everybody feel about 25,000 for the limit?
I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm not.
David, Brian?
I think it's okay, I guess, because like Jackie said, it doesn't have to be the max. I have a feeling people will always gravitate towards the max. That's my fear.
Yeah, but that goes in with the criteria that.
Right. We can look at it.
Right. David?
I don't know. Yeah, sure. I'm mixed bag on it, but again, if we're doing two projects and 25 is the number, then 50 makes sense. So
Okay, so 50,000 for the pilot, 25,000 as a maximum, two projects for the pilot.
In spite of how much it is, like 2 10s is still enough. We're done to look at it.
Yeah, because I think you'll learn a lot as far as the management goes and selection criteria, all that.
I like it. I like that. 2 no matter what.
One other thing that I might toy around with on the projects is, maybe we'll pick 2, but maybe we'll just do them one at a time instead of running them concurrently.
Yeah.
Just to try to manage that a little bit too. So
I think that's a good idea. Okay, so 2 projects, change the word improvement to repair. I think that was a good idea.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay.
Can we take drywall out?
That's a lot of work taking drywall out. I've done that.
And so have I.
No, I think drywall should stay in.
For black mold especially, you need drywall removed, or flooding, any kind of flooding.
But this just says repair of drywall. I'm just saying. It's not structural.
I think for the pilot, I think it's probably okay.
Yeah, for flooding or any kind of sewer backup or anything, that's the first thing you do is remove the drywall.
No on the drywall? Yes on the drywall.
Yes, for me.
Yes. Oh, I mean,
we can.
Yes, keep it.
Yeah, leave it in there.
If need, we can be a little more descriptive with any of those too. So if we need to say drywall when necessary to fix, plumbing, right? Like if you're going to fix plumbing, you got to pull out your drywall. You're going to have, right. So, but to Stephanie's point, if you've got a bunch of holes in your drywall for whatever reason, that's not necessarily something that matches with it. So we can.
That's a good point.
We can modify that a little bit to be more deliberate on what we mean, because I'd agree with what Stephanie mentioned. I don't think the intent was that you get to just put up new drywall, new coat of paint because you wanted your room to look prettier. It's more fixing necessary repairs that are necessary for the integrity of the building.
And I'm fine with that, but in addition to what I would describe as incidental replacement of drywall due to other repairs, I think we need to include when there's flood damage or black mold, health kind of issues.
Yep. I'll write something up and we can take a look at it with the next one. If we need to tweak it prior to resolution, that should be a relatively easy thing to do.
Okay. Anything else, Luke?
That's it.
Okay.
And you're leaving appliances out.
No appliances.
We're taking appliances out completely. We can do that. Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Good.
Let me go back and look at some. And then 5-year forgivable recorded as a second mortgage.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else from council on this one? Hearing none, we will move on. Council inquiries and staff updates. Luke Nelson, you're first. You got to unmute your mic, dude.
Sorry about that. The only thing I was going to bring up, and Mayor, maybe you were going to say this, is just the hybrid in February for the council meeting.
Yep. I was going to say that, so you took my item.
Oh, sorry about that. That's all I have.
All right. Brian,
Nothing.
nothing about the weather?
No.
Stephanie.
Two things from the MPO. One is that it was announced today that at the end of December, Congress passed an appropriations bill, and part of that included $10 billion countrywide for STBG funds. We just found out that Des Moines will get $4.5 million of that. So that we still have to, the DOT still has to weigh in and on how that's distributed, but there could be more money coming Norwalk's way, maybe, for some STBG projects. The money has to be obligated by September 2024. And then second, some of you know this, but those of you who don't, there is a Home Builders Association bill now working its way through the legislature that wants, that says that no city or county can pass any stormwater regulations that exceed either the federal or the state laws for stormwater runoff, discharge, retention, or management. So those discussions that we had earlier in 2020 about, you know, maybe we don't go to the bare minimum of stormwater, maybe we have a little bit higher standard in Norwalk, given that we seem to be having floods more frequently and more problems with runoff. If this bill passes, the federal or state laws would trump whatever we wanted to do. So just want to give everybody a heads up on that. That's it.
Thank you. Lindsay.
Oh, thanks.
All right. Robin.
Well, I just wanted to let everyone know that adult volleyball, we were able to open up programming last weekend. And so adult volleyball started last weekend. Adult pickup basketball started last night, and youth basketball will begin this weekend. So we're back running programming. Soccer registration is now open, and we'll be offering craft club in February if the school, if Lakewood Elementary will let us back in. We just have one more check to do with Jill Anderson. And if she says yes, then we're back in. If not, we'll continue to do the delivery art club like we're doing the rest of this winter, which families enjoyed. So we don't lose participation that way. We're still getting them into our programming. And then the only other thing I would say is that I'm excited about the art master plan. I still am a little leery on if we move forward with the other piece, if we're actually going to be competing with grants. I think we will be, but I guess it's for more discussions, maybe with Mark and myself, to fully understand how he's going to break out the money through the different cities. So
Thank you. Jean Bosch. Jean, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Couldn't get myself unmuted. Good evening. The library is operating pretty much completely by appointments, and the public has accepted that very well. While the city buildings have reopened, we found that it would probably be in the best interest to still have a limit of the number of people who can be in the library at one time, as well as a limit to the amount of time they can come in. And the appointment system's been working really well for that. So we appreciate everyone being willing to work with that and the flexibility.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Holly.
Stupid mute buttons. Okay. The only other thing that I would maybe add is that since we kind of touched on a little bit of the Norwalk Central project along with the Sports Center project, we are ready to come forward to you guys. And when Adam was on tonight, I probably should have mentioned it then, but we are ready to come forward to you with his draft proposal, which is a really cool plan. So I think we will probably just run it through the Economic Development Committee, just maybe work out a few kinks, and then whatever council meeting you would like us to bring that to with Adam, we will go ahead and get that scheduled, because it is a really cool plan. I think you guys will like it. And then the last thing would just be a quick update on the Cobblestone Hotel. So that's still going really well. They're supposed to be providing some kind of finalized or final-ish numbers on the total project cost. That way we can get a little bit closer number on the assumed projected value. And then they have a meeting scheduled Thursday with the Lakewood Village Association, because kind of the last missing piece now is just working through this berm change situation between the DOT and the LVA, just to make sure that everybody's on the same page with that, with the berm changing a bit. So I think that's it. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Gene Kelly.
Thank you. Just real quick, Stephanie asked me a really good question last week, so I thought I would just provide a quick update. She was asking about refinancing and if we look at our bonds and when they're callable. And I thought I'll just provide everybody with an update. We track this often. We always track it when we're going to structure new money, but then we also typically look for any standalone refundings about 6 to 9 months ahead of time when they can be refunded. We did lose the ability to do advance refundings in 2017 with that administration, but now with the new administration, we might get that back. As you will recall, in 2016, we saved about $800,000 by refunding 4 different bond issues and a sewer issue. So that would be really good for local governments if Congress decided to give that ability back to us, not only for cities, but schools and state government as well. So yes, wanted to let you know that we do look at that. If we get that ability back, we've got 5 different issues out there that we could that would definitely merit an analysis of that. And then just one other thing, WRA is doing a refunding and they are going to save about $4.5 million, which sounds like a lot of money. And it is. To Norwalk, that means about $140,000 over a 13-year time span. So just wanted to give you that update. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Chief Staples.
So nothing big going on at the police department, just an update on the security camera and door access project. We got the final numbers in from the competitor bid and we've evaluated them. And as soon as I have a chance to meet with Luke and Jean to discuss it, we'll pick somebody and we'll get that project moving. That's all I got.
All right. Thank you. Chief Coburn.
I don't have anything. Thank you.
All right. Wayne.
Nothing. Thank you.
Okie dokie. Tony.
Nothing here either, Mayor. Thank you.
Wow. All right. Luke Paris.
Holly hit on this a little bit, but next week we're going to meet with the LVA to talk about the North Shore Hotel berm issue. So we'll talk through that with them and get some feedback to them, and then provide that on to the DOT. And then at the beginning of February, we'll have our next comp plan steering committee meeting, where we'll have some future land use plan things that we can start looking through. So that will be a exciting meeting, so we can start seeing some actual colors on a map.
All right. Thank you. Ed.
Just a couple of things, Mayor. We had our meeting at Metro Waste Authority the other day. And one of the goals, of course, was to know all the cleanup dates and have them scheduled throughout the metro area. And I think we've done our part on that now. The other piece of it is that going forward with negotiating for haulers, the grass and the lawn clippings, that sort of thing, it's probably kind of problematic on bids. The cost and that sort of thing has risen pretty astronomically, actually. So we're considering a strategy of maybe bundling by community a bid for all three types of services from a particular hauler, thinking that overall we might be able to get a better bid. Later on, I'll be looking for thoughts and input from the council members on that as we go forward to figure out the best strategy. We're probably about a year away, but it's something for us to think about now. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Jackie?
Nothing from me.
All right, David?
Well, Gene took a little bit of the thunder away. I was going to share the savings on the WRA side. The budget for the WRA is going to be presented in February. It's going to be just short of $50 million to run that operation. They've got 118 full-time employees. So just a heads up on that. But we are saving money this year on things, and next year, I think Grimes adds to that mix, so it should help spread things out a little bit more too. So,
All right, thank you. Jim?
Nothing.
All right, thank you. As Luke mentioned, our next meeting will be hybrid. And just to let you know, as of February 1st, they're going to start phase 1B as far as the vaccination program goes. So just let you know that. That's all I
Mayor,
have.
is that a new update or is that according to the original schedule? Do you know?
I don't know as far as that goes. I know that that's what they mentioned Tuesday in the Warren County meeting. And then I went out and looked on Iowa Department of Public Health, and they say February 1st as well.
Okay, thank you.
I think the original was that they wanted it to start sometime in February.
Yeah, they announced that publicly today. I know it was on the media.
Yeah.
Okay.
Age 65 and over.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was in today's news.
Yeah.
WHO.
Well, anecdotally, I've heard from people who seem to know that they don't even have enough doses to vaccinate everybody 75 and older, let alone open it up to 65 and older. So that's why I was asking if that was new information or I don't know. We'll see. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I think when they get a vial, they schedule all of them, within a 6 hour period, and just get it done as quick as far as Warren County goes. I think they're getting through the vaccine as fast as they can, which is good.
In a bureaucracy, you always say it starts on a certain day. And that way you've got the whole month to get it done.
There you go.
Jackie, you're right. The articles I've read said that they had this plan to do the next phase, but no, there's not enough vaccine doses. So, oh well.
Okay, that's all I had. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
All right, I got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed the same. We are adjourned at 8:41 p.m. Thanks.
All right, good night.